Hi, we're live. Hello, everyone. This is SmartMatch TV, and today we have Jaydi Samuels Kuba, our amazing guest, who is the CEO of LJ Matchmaking, an exclusive referral-only matchmaking company working in the entertainment industry out of Hollywood. Right? This is the first time on the show, and JT is one of our customers. We specialize in matchmaking software for this wonderful matchmaking industry. We work with dating matchmakers, we work with dating coaches, but also communities, connectors in any field. For example, mentorship, business, professional networking, peer support, healthcare. Matchmakers are everywhere. So we're peddling the matchmaking world because it's everywhere. So, JD, welcome, and let's get the show started.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So, if you don't mind, I'll just get the tone started. I'll let the set the tone. JD, you are working out of Hollywood, and you're working in a I guess a very special area. I have never interviewed anyone specializing in entertainment so much. People specialize in professional matchmakers. They work with IT sometimes. Yeah, I've heard IT. I've heard like, oh, we work with, ethnicities like Asian or Jewish matchmaking. I've heard many things, but in the entertainment industry, it's the first time. I want to dig into that a little bit. Can you explain us? What does it mean? Who do you work with?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a massive range. So whether it's someone who is an actor in front of the camera or a studio executive, greenlighting films, or an assistant at an agency, we specialize in helping set up couples who are in the entertainment industry. But a large part of our database is also populated with people outside of that as well, because not everyone who works in the entertainment industry necessarily wants to date each other. So we want to have also the doctors, the lawyers, the pharmacists populating the database too. But my business partner and I originally started in entertainment, so I was a TV writer for years. I still write. And my business partner, Lauren Rosenberg, is now in the agency representation world, and came up through the unscripted universe, being a producer of reality content. And so we just, between the two of us, knew so many people in this world. And, just like anyone else, everyone working in entertainment wants to find love. And we realized there was a need for it. And our database grew from there.
Amazing. I wonder, do you know the latest
Yeah, of
materialist movie?
course. Yeah, I ran
I
in
wonder
theaters
if
as soon as
any,
it came out.
it would be interesting if you were matchmaking for one of the actors there. That would be pretty interesting.
I couldn't tell you if I were, so
I used to work in the casting network, casting network, the company. So I used to work there in the business development department. It's
amazing. I didn't know that.
yeah,
Yeah, I definitely know. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, when you said, uh
yeah, no, I'm really familiar with it. I'm not an actor myself. My daughter, who's 3, has an agent, and she's on Casting Network. But I'm of course really familiar with it, just having gone to USC Film School and a lot of clients on it, of course. And so that's
for
very cool.
everyone watching, casting networks is this giant kind of a casting application software where talents, and I don't think only actors. I think there's all kinds of talents that are in the film industry and beyond, advertising industry as well, that go there for getting casted and create a portfolio in there. So I used to work there, and that experience helped me to build matchmaking software for the matchmaking industry actually as well.
Yeah, I could see that
Um,
connection for sure.
there is, right, there is. I mean, casting, it's matching roles to, that's what I say, matching is everywhere. It's matching roles to talent. Um, let's talk about you. Enough about me for a while, for a little bit. Let's talk about you and your business. So I can see there is at least one in the match, one side or one person in the match is working in the entertainment industry, right? So it could be that the other person is outside, but it starts from someone in the entertainment industry.
Usually. So, yeah, at least 80% of the time. Because we've been in business for so long now, sometimes there's a world where one person was referred to our company maybe as a potential match for someone in entertainment, but then I just fall in love with that person and their journey. And it turns out that, somebody who I don't know, makes video games for a living happens to be a good match for them. I'm not going to not make a good match just because one of them isn't creative or work in entertainment. And so it has
And it could be
really,
a great match, right? It
what was
could be
that?
a great match. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll never prevent a good match from happening if someone doesn't work in entertainment, but the majority of our couples, like if you go to our website, you look at our success stories, the majority of our couples, at least one person works in entertainment.
Amazing. So let's explore that, because it's the first time for me. Is it any different? Let's just try to understand what kind of common problems do you solve for your clients? Are they, maybe I will probably be able to tell you from my experience from with other interviews and other clients if it's any different. Well, what kind of problems do you solve for the your clients in the mainly in the entertainment industry in the dating? Do they similar, like lack of time, lack of sometimes lack of confidence after divorces, like are they do those problems repeat everywhere?
All those problems are universal. Yes, you hear the phrase all the time, like the stars, they're just like us. People who work in entertainment, everyone has the same like intangible desire to find love and to build their confidence and to up their flirt game and correct their nervous dating habits. Just because whether you're famous or running a studio, like these people still struggle with their dating lives in the same way that anyone else would. And so that's part of it, is recognizing the universal nature of what they're trying to find and what their struggles are and helping them with those struggles. However, part of the reason that we do specialize with helping people in the entertainment industry is there are some things that are a little bit different that might be applicable to other industries, but a lot of people are traveling to be on set, for example, and having a partner who understands that and is familiar with that world. Some people who move out to Los Angeles to pursue working in film and television, or some of the other cities around the world where that's popular, they move there because of a passion, and they want to find people who share that passion. And so while I'm not someone who necessarily advocates for finding a partner who does what you do, there are a lot of other people out there who really do want to connect in that way. It can be really refreshing to date someone outside of entertainment, but can also you could feel more understood, and there's less to explain if someone is familiar with the world that you.
So lifestyle, I guess, is a big criteria in your industry, in your world, right? Like, are you willing to accept the lifestyle, the rock and rolls, if rock and roll Hollywood lifestyle, where you spend maybe what, half a year on sets and going maybe away.
Yeah, it's a minority of our clients. Like not everyone, especially these days, is traveling to be on set the majority of the time. But there are other details too. So yeah, being comfortable with someone who might have to, like, I just had a client who had to cancel on an upcoming date she had because I don't even want I won't say what film, but she had to like hop over to Europe to go on a movie. She doesn't know exactly like what date she's coming back, and she needed the other person to. She wants someone who would understand. Like, I'm not excited to meet you. I just have this other commitment, and can you reschedule for a time at the end of July? Right? Most people, if you were doing that online, they would say, oh, you're not taking dating seriously. Like, she's not interested in really meeting me. But this guy said, oh, of course, I totally get it. No worries. Like, I'm free July 27th, July 28th. So that's really common. But there's other aspects too. And I think that is one we encounter. And I, encounter, at least once a week or so. But it's there's a lot more to it, even just emotionally, for example. Like the industry is going through a lot of changes right now, and being with someone who understands those changes, just some of like with the writer's strike that happened, I had so many clients impacted by that on both sides, whether you're creative or not. So just being with someone who really understands the ins and outs and nuances of the industry can be really.
To be honest, JD, I am sitting here right in front of you right now, and I'm not even confident or certain that any industry will be intact in 5 years from now. Less than that, like, strike is one thing, but the technology is changing our life forever, and it's in entertainment industry is one of them, to be honest. And it's not an exception. All of the industries, software development, our industry is going through a big change as well. Like, there is really no need for the same type of coding as in writing programming language. um Quantity of workers, like, you can literally, like, I've read actually online in the news, reputable sources say like 40% of CEOs are planning to cut forces in all departments. Oh, imagine Hollywood, imagine filmmaking, advertising industry. I don't know if you read the news, like there was a news piece in the some few days ago. They made a commercial, a commercial, uh, I think it was for the golf finals. I don't know. I don't remember which one, but it was. It cost $2,000.
I heard about that. It's scary. I mean, yeah, and
It
you're
cost $2,000 and 3 days to make, from versus like six-figure number and like a month.
sorry, I think I
You know,
froze for a second. Um,
I
yeah,
can
no,
see you.
I saw that, and yeah, it's disheartening because you think about everybody who ordinarily would be involved in making a commercial like that, and how if that's going to become the norm, then it's not even just the people on camera and the directors; it's the people who do the lighting and the art design, and you know every element. And so it's frightening. It's like you said, it's pervasive in a lot of industries right now with the emergence of AI. On one hand, it's going to create some new opportunities, but it's scary for the majority of people out there. And that's where, and that's part of why I love that I'm not only a matchmaker, I'm a dating coach. And there are a lot of people out there right now who need to shift their priorities in terms of what they're looking for in a partner. At the end of the day, do you want to be with the over 6 foot man who owns a production company, right? Or who even owns a tech company? Or do you want to be with somebody who is going to emotionally, and these things are not mutually exclusive. You could have a guy who's successful and tall who also emotionally supports you, right? But are you wanting to just prioritize maybe more, less of some of the superficial aspects? You brought up the movie The Materialist, right? Less of the tangible qualities, and find someone who can help be a shoulder to lean on during these difficult times, and have someone who you believe is resourceful and is going to be able to pivot and emerge stronger as a result of all these changes. And so it's really affected also the way we match people and how I coach. And all of these things have to be taken into consideration. But I do think people are starting to really reevaluate the qualities that they're looking for in a partner as a result of the changing times.
Interesting. Yeah. Is clarifying what is it that you're looking for in a partner, right? What are your top dating tips right now that are actually working, like the basics, like the ABCs, of where to even start, like that actually is producing results? Maybe even an example of a success story would be very useful for the singles who happen to run into this video. let's just hit them with a couple of things that, especially if you're a single in the entertainment industry, people, like you are in the right place, right? So Jade is going to share some tips, some dating tips that are actually producing tangible results for singles looking
Yeah,
for
no
love
problem.
and compatibility, you know?
Okay. So, I mean, I'll tell you just the broad strokes and then I'll get a little bit more granular. So, when I'm meeting a client for the first time, I conduct basically like I call it like a health and wellness check, right, on their dating life. So, I want to know how active versus proactive are they in getting themselves out there? How reliant are you on the dating apps? Are you on the dating apps? I think everybody should be supplementing their dating lives in as many ways as possible, right? So, are you on the apps? Are you not? What's your confidence level like? Are you going out into the world and engaging with people, whether you're looking for immediate results like exchanging phone numbers or just simply talking to the woman behind you at Starbucks and it might turn out that her um, cousin, is a perfect match for you. So are you engaging out in the world? I want to know, are there any insecurities holding somebody back so that I can unpack that with them? Do you have any nervous dating habits where you're showing up to a first date and there's a version of yourself that suddenly appears that you don't recognize when you're around your friends, right? Are you talking too much? Are you clamming up? Are you, I was really formal when I was single. I would show up on my first dates and I'd like sip my drink and I'd be very hard to read. So are you
Yeah.
showing proper indicators of interest, right? So there's all these different, there's a lot more where that comes from, but that I'll kind of walk through mentally in my head when I'm meeting someone to know what approach to take with them. So, okay, let's get more granular. Let's say, all right, you're such a great dater, except, men are not sure. And I'm saying men, I'm imagining in this hypothetical, I'm coaching a woman, but I coach a lot of men as well. Let's say you're not showing proper signals that you're interested in someone. So like you got all the goods, you're beautiful, you're funny, you're intelligent, but the person sitting across from you doesn't even know if you want to go on another date. Well, are they going to put themselves out there to ask you out again? Maybe not. So I like to work with someone to figure out what's your love language and how does that translate into a possible way to flirt with somebody. So, not all of the love languages translate really well into flirting, but I find that there's a natural connection between those two things. So, if you are someone who is like really big on quality time, um, acts of service, or giving gifts, these don't necessarily lend themselves as naturally to flirting. It makes you amazing in a relationship, in a partnership. But in the early stages of courtship, you're not really going to start like buying presents for someone on the first date, right? So, how do you show up in a way? So, I look at that and I say, okay, if words of affirmation is more accessible for you as a love language or physical touch, that kind of tells me, do we lean more toward a physical form of flirting or a more verbal style of flirting? And then if none of those are accessible, I kind of do like a flirting 101 session. But if one of those is even like a primary or secondary love language for you, I'll have you lean into those. So I'll give you, if we have time, some tips if you feel more comfortable flirting verbally. And I'll give you some if you feel more comfortable with a physical flirting style. So let's start with verbal. I think it tends to be more accessible for a lot of people who don't have as much dating experience sometimes. The physical, unless you're very naturally affectionate, can always feel a bit more intimidating. So, in terms of a verbal flirting style, I always ask clients, even the ones that say that they're comfortable flirting using their words, like, well, how does that show up on a date? Give me an example, because I want to get into their head and figure out how it's really manifesting. So, the most common response that I get is, oh, I'm great at witty banter. I give compliments. All of these things are great. So this is a yes and that I'm talking about. But when it comes to doing these things, this is not necessarily showing interest to someone. It's great and you should continue doing it. But the litmus test for me as to whether or not you're flirting is, can this guy or can this woman's mother say this to them and it not be weird? So if you're like, oh my gosh, you just got this big promotion, this is so impressive, oh my god, it's amazing, someone's mother can say that about them too. So it's
Yeah.
complimentary, but it's not flirting. So when it comes to flirting, I like to have someone talk about what's right in front of them. So you're on a date. It sounds superficial, but do you like the choices they've made? Like, do you like what they're wearing? Do you like how their hair is styled? Do they have beautiful eyes? Talk about what you see right in front of you. You don't do that with someone you're not interested in, showing that you're engaged, you're in the present, you're noticing them, you like what they see. Now, for people that are a bit more uncomfortable being so direct, there's more subtle ways that you can verbally flirt. And my favorite is by asking questions, not just any question, but having to do again with what you see in the here and now. So, a favorite of mine is, let's say, okay, this sounds sounds silly. I'm using my husband as an example. He's suddenly single. He's out on a date. If he were sitting across from somebody and someone said to him, "So what do you do to work out?" The reason I love this question and the reason I think it's very flirtatious is they're not saying to him, "Do you work out?" Because if you say, "Do you work out?" you're saying, "I can't tell looking at you. Do you work out? Are you fit? I can't really tell." But if you say, "So what do you do to work out?" It's a very innocent question. You're not putting yourself out there that much. You're just saying, "So what do you do? What do you do to work out?" But what it's doing is it's subconsciously telling the person, "I'm noticing something about you that's making me think that you take care of your body. I like that. What is it?" My husband, if you were on a date and someone said that to him, he would be like, "Oh my God, she noticed that I've been boxing lately and my arms are more toned," right? So you're just categorized in that person's brain differently than, let's say, their mother. So that's on the verbal side. Do we have time for the physical side too?
Totally. This is about dating, matchmaking, and I think it's an amazing, and I just love how you. This is something I haven't heard many times. I just want to recognize this. The way that you're approaching flirting in a positive light, in a playful, practical light. I love that, because what do we normally, like, if I ask anyone, like, just not in the dating world, just generally, what flirting could have a people could have a not negative, but the kind of connotation, it could be, taken out of context, and maybe not such a kind of productive matchmaking, productive dating technique, flirting, however, in your words coming from you, it's like a technique, it's like a natural way for us to date. I like that. I feel like flirting all of the sudden becomes like a must. It's like you have to flirt. You go on a date, you have to flirt. I like that approach. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
ready
there's so
for the
many.
physical flirting.
Yeah. So also, just before I get into that, to touch on what you were saying, I think part of the reason it feels natural, it's so important for me when I'm working with a client to not just say, "Okay, here is how you flirt," and I give the same advice I would give to anyone else walking through my door. I think it's really important to figure out, how do you do that in a way that's authentic to you? Right? You don't want it to be formulaic. Everyone, what makes you tick is different. What you're comfortable with is different. And so that's why I like to kind of do it through the lens of what your love languages are, because it helps me get a sense of your comfort level and what's going to come off organic and natural. And so, yeah, if you're not someone who does physical flirting, I'll give you an example. And the obvious things for people who are comfortable, it's the ones, that are revealing the nape of their neck more readily when they're talking to someone, or touching their hair, batting their eyelashes, or leaning in. All of the things, like playfully touching someone's arm, all of the things that are in the physical space. If you're not comfortable with it, I do want people to move in that direction, because I do think it is by far the most obvious way to show someone that you're interested. The verbal cues are great. So again, yes, and do this, but also, how do I get someone who's not that comfortable physically flirting to move in that direction? So one misconception is that it's still considered a physical category of flirting, even if you're not touching someone, if you're closing the gap between the two of you, right? So there's a difference between me talking to you like this and me being excited and leaning in and talking to you like that. It's just different energy. So closing the physical gap is still physically not flirting, but kind of moving toward that space. It is a little flirtatious because you're indicating interest, that you're engaged and interested by leaning closer to someone and talking.
And it's funny. It's funny. I've seen it many times in the not necessarily in a dating, but in a business setting also. Because business is a kind of dating, but it's a professional dating, if you wish. At the conferences, and I sometimes see like someone is doing this, and the other person literally is going like backwards. It's like
You have to pick up on cues, because if somebody's doing that, you should mirror what they're doing and lean back a little bit too, because it's not just about your comfort level and signaling interest. You have to pick up, are they interested? Are they receiving this? Are they comfortable? So that's
And
also
some people don't, and that becomes kind of a funny picture, because you look at one person almost like boxing you in the corner, and the other one is like, okay, like just give me some
you start
space,
off
but
on
they
this
don't
side of the
say that.
room talking at a conference, and then suddenly like you're over on this side because the person keeps going closer and the other person's moving away. But yeah,
Yeah,
in terms of actually touching someone when you're not someone who's comfortable with physical touch, this is where the pandemic changed everything for how I coach with physical flirting. So people, even though we're kind of, post all of those times, still dealing with some of the ramifications, of course, but post like being in quarantine all the time. I still love virtual dating for practice with physical flirting. And this sounds really counterintuitive. Like, JD, what are you talking about? This sounds nonsensical. How can you practice physically flirting with someone if they're on the other side of the computer from you? But virtual dates are great. Like, whether it's maybe not the way we're talking, I think sometimes there's other like Zoom, for example, you can touch up my appearance and you can have like these filters and everything. Like, I always recommend using a platform where you can just portray yourself in the best light, right? So if you are doing virtual dates, doing that, men don't have to treat on the date. You can wear sweatpants. There's many reasons why meeting someone for the first time virtually before you show up in person can have benefits. I think if you're going to wow in person, do that. But if you have things you need to practice, set up some virtual dates, which again was not an option really pre-pandemic, which has destigmatized it. So how do you practice physically flirting through a computer screen? So I like to take an object. I'm going to bring my phone because it's close by into the screen. So pretend this is someone's arm. Like if you're watching a movie and you see someone be like, oh my God, you're so funny, and she touches his arm. You see this all the time, right? In rom-coms, in real life, people that are naturally very affectionate. I want you to practice pretending that your date, their arm, is a cell phone or something that's readily accessible to you just off screen.
yeah.
I'm going to place it off
Okay, that's a
screen.
nice technique. That's a
Yeah, it's
nice
very
technique. Yeah.
helpful. So let's say you take your hand, you pretend it's someone's arm. Oh my God, that was so funny. I'm going to do that off screen and just be like, oh my gosh, that was so funny. I just made contact with the phone. The other person couldn't see it. But what it's doing is it's training our bodies to get more comfortable associating physical touch with a moment of levity. And so the same way when we learn a new word and the more that we use that word, the more it will be baked into our vocabularies. Our bodies have physical vocabularies. And the more we practice something, the more organic it's going to feel in our physical vocabulary. So this is an easy thing to do, an easy way to practice. Start making contact with an object where no one can see it in these virtual dates. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. Touch something, and then you can start practicing it in your day-to-day life, becoming more physically affectionate with your friends.
And you're already sending signals like that through the camera, even, but you're sending signals that you kinesthetic, and yeah, it
It's so
makes sense.
important, and nothing will register like physical touch in terms of signaling that you're interested in someone and present and curious about them and attracted to them, and all of that. And that can be in a platonic sense, like in a business meeting, but my job is to get people to get second dates and more. So in a romantic setting, so if you're someone uncomfortable or not as comfortable with physical touch, I think that's a really great way to practice.
100%. Thank you for sharing this. And I know we have singles watching it, and I know people do have certain challenges in the dating, the way they approach the dating, even the first dates or the second date, or just generally even the relationship in general. My daughter is on vacation, by the way, walking around.
Hello.
She just left. um, I think it's super useful, and I think it's very practical. So I wish that that will be applied by our viewers right away. And I hope that dates will go just one level higher, one level better, more confidence. Um, just to switch the topic a little bit from the actual dating to the matchmaking business as a business, I'd like to ask you, how long have you been in the matchmaking business yourself, generally, and how you started in the matchmaking business, and then maybe like move on to the technology questions, like how you find Smart Match useful for you, sharing the tips with other matchmakers about technology, and your favorite features. So, but break it down. First thing about like your matchmaking story. What got you in the matchmaking business in the first place? um I I would say you were before matchmaking. I think you mentioned it before matchmaking a career, dating coaching career. You were working in Hollywood. Am I wrong? Am I
Yes. Yeah,
right?
I was a TV writer.
Yeah, and that was your main profession, right? The main uh, trade. And how did you get from that profession into the matchmaking and dating
Yeah.
coaching?
It seems really different, right? It's actually weirdly not. I think the same way you talked about the correlation between the casting network's job and now and how you were like matching, it translates. For me, it's all about what makes somebody tick. And when you're writing a character for a TV show, you are going to have the most successful story if you get invested in that person's journey and you figure out who they are, where they're coming from. And so for me, it was very natural when I would meet people in the matchmaking world, instantly just having that curiosity of like, well, who are you? What are you about? What are you looking for? How can I help you find that? So the skill set is actually weirdly very similar, as long as you're interested in people, right? And then how I got into it. So I was an assistant at the time. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I was an assistant at the time, on the show Family Guy. And I noticed that all these people that I loved working with, a lot of them, some were married, some were happily married, some not so happy, but a lot of people that worked there had prioritized their career, at the expense to some degree of their personal lives. And there were
Oh
so,
my God, I hear this all the time, all the time. Yeah, so one of the problems is that successful, very hardworking at the career, but somehow neglecting uh, the the personal dating life, and as a result, loneliness, disconnection.
well, I think people have to
It's
give
like
themselves people have to give themselves grace, right? Because, and I was just having this conversation with a client this morning. You know, if you are a clown in a circus and you are juggling for the audience, you are not going to throw all three balls up in the air at once. One of them is going to hit the floor. You throw up one, then you get two. And when you're comfortable with two, it's my dog. When you're comfortable with two, you throw up a third. So, and then you can juggle it all, right? So you're juggling, you're balancing, elements of your life. So I like to think of life, there's the professional, the personal, and then there's self care. So there's so many clients I meet where, they are thriving professionally. That ball's been up in the air finally for a while. Maybe they even take care of themselves too. And now it's the time that they're shifting into, okay, I can throw up this third ball, which is I want to find my person. But then there's people who are the opposite, right? How many people do you know who just are so happily married and have families? They take care of themselves. Some people don't take care of themselves, and that's the ball that needs attention, right? But some people take care of themselves. They have a family, but they feel a little bit lost in their career. It's very difficult. I don't know that I know anyone, and I know a lot of very like well-known, successful people, um, who would say that they have all of those things. Or if they did, that they had it all at the beginning. There are people, very few, but people who eventually are able to have balance that they want of all three. But I think people that are like before the age of 40, if you have figured out how to have all three of those things and you are just like, I've got it. I'm a 10 out of 10 happy with my personal life, my professional life, and just having fun and taking care of myself, like you have solved life. Congratulations, my friend. But if you are under 40 years old and you are someone who feels like, really down on yourself because one of those areas is lacking, give yourself some grace. I don't know many people who achieved all of that before that age. So
Oh,
definitely.
including me too. I before 40, there's a lot of trial and error and a lot of experimentation, and actually burning in few cases burning bridges that cannot be unfortunately restored. In personal relationships as well as business relationships sometimes. So it takes time. It does take time, and it takes forgiveness. You have to be able to forgive yourself. You have to be able to accept yourself, and you have to relentlessly work on all your areas that need work. And guess what? Even after you have found your couple, it's still work, and it's going to continue to be an investment, continuous investment of time. It's not automatic. It's not autopilot. It's gonna have to, especially when the kids come into the picture, and then other challenges come in life, like, well, I got laid off. Oh, well, economy is not so well. Oh, well, you know, my mom or my pop is not feeling well, and all of a sudden life is gonna test you, and test your health. how can you how well are you prepared to tackle all of that together?
It's so
How are you prepared to tackle it alone? Are you strong enough to do work for you and a little bit extra for to share and to help your partner, and vice versa? It's always that extra. Anything you do, business, career, personal, it's no different. I agree with you. Yeah, I think it's a syndrome that people like underestimate the amount of work that they have to put into personal relationship is no less, sometimes even more, and even sometimes more challenging if it's not natural for you. Maybe because of your family history. If your mom and your pop or generally like have been fighting all their life. That's all you have seen. You're gonna repeat those patterns, and then probably bring them on into your personal relationship, and your first resort, because I come from this world, so your first reaction is going to be fight it over instead of figuring it out and just accepting it. It's work. It's not something you can just brush off. You cannot brush off, say, you know what, I don't want to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about. That's what I have from my past. I remember relationships between my parents, like, specifically, there's nothing to talk about. Like, that's what I heard so many times, and my wife would notice that the first year, like, it's like, I want to talk. I said, well, what's there? Let's just forget it. Let's just forget. It's fine. It's gonna work itself out. So all it is that we're not taking sometimes personal relationships as seriously as other areas of our life.
great. And lucky me, I get to meet people when they are finally making the decision to prioritize it. But yeah,
It's
it's
a
very true.
decision. It's a decision to make it, to commit. You know, yeah. So yeah, it definitely resonates. And everyone, if you're watching this, if you haven't decided, this as soon as you decide, that's just from my own experience. But also talking to so many wonderful matchmakers like JD, with in this case 20 plus years. How many matches have you made? I don't know, God knows. Like, have you even counted all the matches and all the coaching sessions you have made?
Coaching, it's a significant amount. It's interesting. I actually think this is a great segue to talk about success stories in our field. So I'm really transparent. I think there's no way to measure success in our industry where someone is held accountable for a number. So you hear like a wild
Well,
range
why not?
of like,
Marriage
so
could marriage
for
be?
me, it's around a dozen. In terms of the marriages, the babies, engagements, all of that, it's around a dozen. I've been doing it professionally since 2014, and then about 20 years just in general, like matching friends and all of that before it became a business in 2014. I'm
That's
always
all. That all counts in my book. That all is
yeah,
counting. It
yeah. But
counts.
what I want to say is the numbers to me, I'm so proud of it. And I think that sometimes in the matchmaking field, there's some, I don't want to say fabrication of numbers, but people are very loose with what they define as success. And there's not a lot of people that press them on what does success mean to you and at your company. So there are a lot of companies you'll see like we have an 82% success rate, or we have set up thousands of success stories. I will tell you, I'm not here to spill the tea, but I'll tell you, like, it's some of these larger companies, right? I was talking to an employee there and she told me, like, I've set up 600 success stories. And I said, oh my God, like, I should quit right now. 600 marriages. That's amazing. I knew when I said that it was a little bit
You,
facetious because we both know she
your
didn't set
job.
up 600 marriages. But I really
Yeah.
wanted to know, like, at your company, what does 600 success stories mean? And she said, like, without batting an eyelash, oh, first dates that lead to second dates. And I was like, yeah,
Okay.
then I'm in the thousands there. So a lot of people, like 80% success might mean you were in my database, or I was setting you up for 1 year. And because of my coaching, you found marriage because of the invaluable advice I gave you as a coach. That might be true. And I actually think that in terms of the number of success stories I've contributed to because of the coaching, or what they've learned by what they're looking for by some of my setups, right? It would be like hundreds and hundreds of success stories. But when someone comes to me and they say, like, how many success stories, like you're asking how many success stories you have, I want them to know it's about a dozen marriages. I think it's important, that transparency, and to say, I hope to add you to one of those success stories. The numbers, I think, are more honest and transparent. Anyone can make up a
It's
statistic.
realistic. It's very realistic because it's what's the analogy I can do? Analogy could be in business development because I've been in business development all my life. So it's like you do 1,000 sales or business development demonstrations or sales calls. It turns into 10% of that maximum turns into potential sales deals of customers, and that in 10% of that potentially can actually it turns into like paid customers. So it's like 10% to another 10% to another 10. So it makes sense to me. You have all these introductions that are very, very time consuming to make, but it's not. Yeah, I guess I understand why it's not accurate to say like 80% of them went on a second date and that's a success, right? I guess that it can be different.
It is its
It
own
can be.
it's its own metric, right? Like, that's a wonderful thing. Like, if you're that good at setting up first dates that lead to second dates, say that. Say, like, you know, 85% of my first dates lead to second dates. I would sign up with that company. That's a wonderful statistic that company or person
Yeah,
should be proud of.
because still there's a lot of work goes into qualifying and screening and interviewing the candidates to ensure that they have the most compatible first date. So yeah, it's a great statistics, but it's very different statistics from marriage, for
Yeah.
example.
Also, in terms of like, so I started in 2014 as a company. Um, People date for a few years before they get married for the most part, unless you're working within a more like religious niche community where it tends to go faster. So, my
How do you
first
call that statistic when people just go on they pose the contract, right? Because they want to date for a while. So that's a good statistic too, right?
Yeah, I
To
also,
use.
and this is maybe a little bit different than somehow other companies operate, I put a membership on hold. I won't have it count toward um, the totality of their membership. So if they end up breaking up with someone and they had 6 months left on their membership, I'm not going to say like, oh, well, you dated this person during the 6 months of your membership, or during the last 6 months, you have no time left. You have to renew your contract. I I don't know. I just like I want everything to be in support of somebody's journey. And so, if you want to explore something exclusively with someone, I don't want you to not explore that because you're worried it's going to eat into your membership time with us.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, we usually will pause and have somebody resume, unless it's
And
someone.
this is the
Yeah.
whole idea.
Mhm.
And this is the whole idea of you working with exclusive matchmaking firm like yours. It's just that it's personalized, and you can pause or restart, or you can do sales coaching. has well, it has certain similarities. Dating coaching, because dating coaching, you're selling yourself. You're it's similar in that sense. Um, so what would you, if you were starting a matchmaking business? This is another question that I think our audience really appreciates, especially the matchmakers who are watching the show and collaborating with each other via Smart Match or individually on the other places. Um, if you were starting a matchmaking business, just think of yourself going back to 2014. What are the top three do's and the three don'ts that you would highlight or recommend?
The number one don't is don't start too big too soon. So there are a lot of companies that will start charging off the bat thousands of dollars for a membership, and they don't have the database to support those rates, and they have to rely completely on recruiting. You mentioned the materialist. I think that's a perfect example of um, the pitfalls. Recruiting. Some people are incredible at recruiting. Some of the matchmakers that I most love collaborating with and recommend for people do recruiting. So there's some people who do it well.
Like literally head hunting, right? They just literally go cold. And
I mean, that's generally what it is, but some people are very good at it and are discerning and have proper vetting. But then, like in the materialists, you'll see like someone less experienced who doesn't know what to look for can put their clients in dangerous situations. This is rare, but it's not inconceivable if someone doesn't have the experience, right? And some of these companies are just hiring someone who looks the part and they're fresh out of college. They just need a job and they think they're going to be good at it, right? So one of the biggest don'ts is don't start too big too soon. Build up a database that you can be proud of quality singles. And when you feel like you have enough people to set up, then you monetize the business. I think the ones that have started too big too soon and have to rely more on recruiting than their internal databases is where sometimes you can have more hiccups in the business. So that's one piece of advice. Another piece of advice, just make sure you continue to keep it as personalized as possible. I think there's a lot when you do this for so many years, there's a lot that would help you for expediency purposes to make it more routine. Like, I don't know, like this is this person's bio, and no matter who they meet, that's the same bio they're going to get for that person. I understand the efficiency behind that, right? But if I'm setting up two people, this is one reason why I love Smart Match. If I'm setting up two people and I click match details, I'm not just telling them, I'm introducing you to this person and they're an amazing person because XYZ. I'm saying they're amazing because XYZ, and you said you're looking for this and this and this. And Smart Match reminded me, right, that they have this, this, and this. They both play tennis. They both, and I've, some the algorithm as it is amazing, but I also love how customizable it is. And like we've added some categories and things. And I love that it can flag for me, both this person's looking for someone who contributes to charities, for example, like donates to charities, and this person's very charitable, right? So it reminds me of some of those things that maybe I wouldn't have remembered the year before because I've met 1,000 people since. So I'll customize bios even now, 15, 20 years later, to tell someone why I think this person is specifically well suited for you. So that's one of my top do's. Make sure, like, you're not a computer. People are coming to you because you're personalizing this. This is not just some random online dating algorithm that's going to say, like, you're both Jewish, go on a date. So I like the personal component to it that we bring to the table. What are some other big ones? I would say empathy. This is very broad, but I think a lot of matchmakers, the best ones, bring empathy to the table every single time. You're dealing with people's most vulnerable parts of themselves. And so you're going to have people who get frustrated and disappointed if they go on one date that doesn't turn out well, whether it's through you or maybe on their own. And they're coming into these meetings sometimes a little bit charged. And instead of going into defense mode and saying, like, well, this is why the date was a perfect date. It's like, no, it wasn't a perfect date. It didn't work out. So let's have some empathy, figure out, okay, am I really listening to my client? Maybe this match was good on paper, but here's why they're frustrated. This is hard for them. They've been single for however many years or months, and they're just really wanting to connect with someone. So don't come at it from a place of defense, come at it from a place of empathy. What is another good do? Do use SmartMatch. It has saved my life.
Oh,
It has
let's
saved
talk
me.
about that for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in terms of smart match, well, first of all, thank you for sharing the do's and don'ts. And I find that giving like a pay, like giving tips is like paying forward. It's a small, but it's growing, and it's a very uh, wonderful industry, in my opinion, and providing people with a very much needed component that's lacking in the dating apps. It's a personalized, very high touch service, and it does miracles for people, in my opinion. I've seen so many great stories, including yours. You said marriages, and that is huge, in my opinion. In fact, I sometimes joke, like, people ask me, like, what do you do? I say, well, I'm in the business of making babies. They don't get, like, they're like, what do you mean, in the business of making babies? Yes, well, and explain, we work with matchmakers. Oh, that way, yes. you know because marriages, it just also makes me, it motivates me. We're part of it. We're part of this wonderful process of finding compatible long-term love. And it's exciting because it's such an important component of our human life, human happiness, human health. you know
I know there's
Health.
all these studies now. Like, I keep seeing memes about, like, the younger generation doesn't want to find love. Like, they just want to focus on themselves. And I feel like it's more, and this is so, I think it's the opposite of cynical, but it's going to come off overly suspicious and skeptical. I don't buy it. I believe everybody wants that. And anyone who says otherwise, and this is, I know, wildly controversial, but anyone who says otherwise maybe is just worried about their prospects of finding it, or frustrated and trying to
Well,
justify
fear,
it.
the amount of work, commitment, the amount
It's a
of
lot, and what you have to go through to get it sometimes. But once you do get it, it's so worth it. And I don't believe that anyone wants to look back at the end of their life and not having shared it with somebody. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. I know ascribing that thought is maybe wrong, because there will be people who say, like, no, absolutely not. That's not what I'm looking for. But I just believe deep down, everyone wants to love, give love, receive love.
and not only that, but it just a relationship, when it's challenging in a way that it has to be comfortable. Of course, it has to be compatible, but when it's challenging enough so you grow, I find it so fascinating. Maybe it's not for everybody. Maybe some people think, I don't want to be challenged in a relationship. I don't know if it's even possible not to be challenged. Maybe it's like always happy. It's something I would like to ask you. Maybe, like, is this even possible? That is it even recommended or possible that a relationship, there is no hiccups, there is no like discussions or arguments? Is it even the goal? I don't think so. From my experience, I think the goal is to challenge and to get through the challenges gracefully, improve your communication skills, improve your relationship skills, improve your stress, dealing with the stress skills. Like, all of that is like running your own business in a way. Like, the one thing that I always remind myself, I'm like, one of the best things I ever done for me, for my personal, is start my own business. It changed me. It challenged me to be more organized, to be on time, to crunch the numbers, to do the accounting, to count the revenue, to count the costs, to do this, to do that, and to deal with customers, to support the sales, the back end, the front end. It challenges me, and I do things, and I become more human at the end. I don't know how other people perceive it, but my business makes me more real, more human. I'm not hiding behind some corporate jobs. It's like here. It's all here, and I have to deal with this every day. That's what my own business is teaching me. Same thing with a good relationship. There's no way to hide. You cannot hide behind behind some walls. You have to be real. You have to be sensible. You have to be, how can I say that? Well, sensible is one way, but like, you have to be real in a way that you are exposed. You're not with your partner. You're obviously open with your partner. Openness. So yeah, relationship is, it makes us human, and I don't know how you can like consider that you like staying alone is a solution. So, but hey,
If you're one of those
it's a
people watching, have one conversation with me. I would love to try to change your mind.
yes, please, yeah. So if anyone says, look, I'm happy alone and I don't need anyone, I
Come talk
suppose
to me.
would be interesting to see and record it on JD's podcast. We will put all the links below to JD's podcast, to JD's website, and please reach out if you want to have an argument, or that you want to have some help. Well, JD, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the next episode, another episode of Smart Match TV, which is all about dating, matchmaking, and matchmaking all over the different industries, different needs, purposes, from social to dating to professional to healthcare. There is matchmaking everywhere. So yes, if you're in a matchmaking business, if starting a matchmaking business, you can come and learn so much here, get the technology, and networking with other successful matchmakers all around the world. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you around. Thank you.